It was May 2019. I was attending a satsang in Bangalore conducted by Anantaji, who's Mojiji's disciple. During the satsang, he asked us to practice meditation. He wanted to do a guided meditation. So he asked everyone to close their eyes and observe their breath. And we all did that. We sat quietly, focused on our breath, and started observing the breath. After a few minutes, he then instructed, can you observe the observer who is observing the breath? When I listened to that one, I was suddenly hit by a thought that it is not possible. I was very confused at that time. I was sitting quietly. On top, I was calm. But inside, I was feeling very restless. That why I got this thought? Why the observer can't be observed? And I just wanted to be with that thought. Now I know that Anantaji was still guiding the meditation, and I could faintly hear his words. But at that moment, I was totally out of that zone. I was not concentrating on his words at all. They were falling on my ears, but I wasn't concentrating on his words anymore. I was consumed by this thought that observing the observer is impossible. And then I decided that I will just focus on this thought alone and let it evolve. I wanted to know why this thought came to me, or what exactly is the meaning of this. So I sat quietly and continued to focus on this thought. I was just watching this thought as if a sentence written on a wall, and I'm just staring at that sentence, which says, it is not possible to observe the observer. And I'm just staring at it, confused, wondering what it means and why is it not possible. And then after a few minutes, another thought occurred. And it said, it is like the eye, the organ eye, which can see everything but cannot see itself. We can only know that it is there. If I was the only person on earth, no human being, no other living creature who has eyes, and there is no mirror or anything for me to see what my eye looks like, then I would never know what my eye looks like. Although I'm using this eye to see everything. So I know it exists, but at the same time, I can't see it. And that is exactly how I cannot observe the observer. Because if I were to observe the observer, then another question would come which says, then who is observing the observer observing? And this question will just keep on going. And at one point, we have to conclude that it is not possible. We just know that the observer is there. I just know that I am the observer. I cannot observe it. And I'm looking deeply, and I could not find it. I was so overwhelmed by this thought that after this realization, I was swamped by what it seems like millions of thoughts. I could feel that I'm no different to anything. This world is only forms and names. Everything is made out of the same elements, just the elements have different forms, and those forms have different names. It is like clay. When we use a clay to make a pot or a vessel, then after that form has taken place, we don't call it clay, we call it a pot, or we call it a vessel, or we call it a plate, or we call it a glass, because all we see is a form and we call the form a name. However, all these forms are made of clay. The moment we start saying it clay, all this diversity will vanish. The diversity is only there because I'm calling it by different names, although underlying it is all the same thing. And that realization hit me very hard, that this entity, which we called Sachin, is made of exactly the same clay, exactly the same building material as a table, or as a tree, or as a bird, as a plane, anything. The underlying material is the same, it's just different forms, and we call it different names, and therefore we think of them as different. The realization was so strong that I could sense that I do not exist as an individual. I have always existed. I have not come from anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. I have always been there. Everything is me. I am everything.